Hey, get inspired, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Life Inspired. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is a program where we talk about how and why people are following Jesus, usually regarding a turning point. So it's life dot 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 inspired because God does things in between the dots. There's your life's going along, and then there's this turning point moment where he kind of gets your attention and has you walking into a new inspired path. Even if you knew him before, sometimes it's before you knew him and now you know him. Sometimes it's just you were walking with him, but he's like, hey, come over here. I want you to do this with me. And so we love these stories. You can watch these stories on our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, or at lifeinspiredshow.com. And you can share these programs from there. Please remember to like us and subscribe to us because that helps get the word out to more people about all the great things that God is doing. And during quarantine, don't we need to hear that? So, they are loosening things up at the date of this recording. But yeah, it's still so essential for us to hear about all the great things that God's doing in people's lives. So our guest today on Zoom with me for social distancing is Kathy Wonderly of our local Chick-fil-A right here in Michiana. So Kathy, thank you so much for being with us. We're so excited to have you today.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So we have lots of mutual friends. We have different people. I've met you a few times at the Main Street location, or I think at a birthday party, and we one very very dear friend I think is like your best friend, my friend Sheila. So yeah, so I'm so excited to hear about your turning point. What do you want to share with us today? Let's go back to your backstory for whatever turning point you're going to talk about. A lot of people have numerous turning points, but let's talk about one main one, and what's your backstory to that?
Okay, thanks. I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional home, as a lot of people, with parents who really hated each other, never really liked each other, started out separate, same bedroom, went to same bedroom, separate beds, and then eventually separate bedrooms. I was much younger than all of my siblings, so they really kind of stayed married for me and let me know that. So that was not a
Oh,
great thing.
wow.
And so just kind of grew up in this toxic environment. My dad also pretty unemotionally attached, not really show much love. And so just grew up kind of desperate to be loved. And so we went to church, but just a Lutheran church once a week didn't really mean anything in our lives. And so when I was 18, I guess kind of prior to that, my mom would threaten to divorce my dad. My dad would threaten to kill himself and make us watch. And so kind of that's just kind of how we grew up.
Wow.
Just desperate to be loved. When I was 18, met somebody named Kurt. He said he loved me. It's really all I needed to hear. Ended up pregnant at 19. Kurt was not a good person, lots of drugs, alcohol, those
Mm.
kind of things. So found myself
Oh.
19, pregnant, alone. The day before I turned 20, gave birth to my oldest son, Aaron, my little miracle. And so through that, and just some extenuating circumstances and all of that, ended up really seeking out God and trying to, you know, um, find a different way to live. Kurt was very involved in drugs and multiple women. I had to end up getting an AIDS test. And so through that, I just really asked God if he would spare my life, that
Oh.
I would give my life to him. And he did. I mean, and I did,
Wow.
and he did. And it just, there's a big, long story behind that, but he spared my life. And so since
Well,
that
we got
time,
nothing but time. If there's a big long story, if you need to share it, share it.
like I said, I had to go have an AIDS test, and the day that I had to wait, it was in the holidays, and so I had to wait like 2 weeks to get my results, which was terrible. And so a lot of begging and pleading and bartering, I guess you would say, with God, because I really didn't have a relationship with him. But anyway, the day that I had to go get the test, I ended up sitting in the waiting room for like an hour. When I went in, they said, "Oh, we just got this really strange phone call, and we had to deal with all this stuff." And I mean, it's just my version, but I really believe that God changed those test results. because there really isn't any reason that I didn't have
Wow.
the disease. And so anyway, so it was really just his hand on my life, which had already been there. I just didn't know it.
Wow.
And so that for me was the
Right.
major turning point, of course, and set me on a trajectory to where I am today. And so there have been lots of other turning points, but that was definitely the backstory and the main turning point there. So
Right.
praise God.
Right. Can you give us a little hint of some of the other turning points? Like, I mean, I'd love to know how he got you at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
What was
sure.
that?
Sure. So, I mean, I think a first major turning point is, learning I mean, there's lots of things decisions I had to make after I became a Christian, live differently. One of those was to eliminate Kurt from my life, and really go from the point of I'd rather be in a toxic relationship than be alone, I would rather be alone with God and have His love. And so that was a major turning point, I think, to just find that love and value and worth in the Lord versus in trying to desperately get that
Wow.
from somebody else. So that was a major turning point. Just really living differently and again just living for the Lord instead of this earthly affirmation that I didn't get from my father. And just being a single parent, there's so many things in all of that. So
For
when my son
sure.
was 4, I
Right.
met my husband, and it was very much a God thing that my son looked exactly like my husband looked when he was a baby. So no one really would know that they
Wow.
were biological. And so that was just a great blessing in my life to have that and a good relationship, a right and proper relationship formed by the Lord. And so I have always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit and really always thought that I would have my own business someday. And just had really good friends in the Chick-fil-A business and learned a lot about it. And the company, my values and theirs are the same. So I get to be the same person,
Right.
which is very important to me.
Right.
And I have a real heart for women, especially, but people understanding their worth and value. So you understand your worth and value and decisions like I made. There's always forgiveness in that, but sometimes the consequences are still there. And so just people not having to have regrets.
Right.
So anyway, Chick-fil-A is a company. It allows me to, they desire and want me to have that kind of influence on my team and within the community to be able to speak of people's value and worth. And so anyway, in 2000, we found out that the Scottsdale Mall, which doesn't exist anymore, but Chick-fil-A there was available. The owner had decided to get out of the business. And so we decided to throw our name in the ring. And because of my past experience in business and things, it just made more sense for me to be the one. There can only be one owner. So anyway, I threw my name in the hat and in the ring and went through a very long 4 or 5 month process. Um, I know for sure that, I mean, there's just no reason it should have been me, but God, but
Right.
God. It was His plan and His
God said,
purpose.
I want you to do this.
Yeah, it was His
Right.
plan and purpose for us and for reasons we don't even know yet. Anyway, so in 2001 we started our journey with Chick-fil-A, and we were at Scottsdale Mall for about 17 months. Transfer our ownership out to University Park Mall. And then they built the freestander where we're currently at. So we transfer ownership there. And so that restaurant will be open 16 years on July 1st. So it's been 20 years, almost 20 years
Wow.
total, but 16 years at this location.
Right.
So
Where you are. Right.
yeah, it allows me to live out my passion of just using my business to bless other people and to, again, to have that ability to change the trajectory, help people change the trajectory of their life. Your past doesn't have to dictate
Sure.
your future. So,
Right. Yep. I love this. This is awesome. So I really, really heard you say, I don't, at first, I'd rather be in a toxic relationship than be alone. But then I'd rather be alone with God who loves me than in a
yeah,
toxic relationship. And
yes.
there's so many. that don't know that. There's so many that they 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 think they need that person. And sometimes it's not a person. Sometimes they're filling their lives with their work, or sometimes they're filling their lives with the drugs or whatever. But we're always trying to fill our lives with something we can touch, because we can't really touch God. We don't really see God. We just see, like, the wind moves the leaves. I don't see the wind, but I see the leaves move. So I love that you said that. Do you have any insight for, like, do you think there were people that were praying for you? How do you think you got from the one to the other?
Yes. I for sure had people praying for me. Kind of around that time, my grandfather had passed away. And so I attended his funeral at this little church down in Lakeville, and just really felt like, I needed to go back. And so my sister and I went back and we started attending. And so I know those people were so instrumental in me really learning who God is and who I was in Him. And I know for a fact, not only were they praying for me, they were praying with me. And the pastor, he was very helpful in helping me kind of come up with some healthy boundaries to give to Aaron's dad and father, and to be able to say, here are the things, right, that meant, because, and it was easier for me too, because I now had this little being 100% dependent on me. So it wasn't just about me anymore. And so they definitely were praying for me. They were definitely guiding me. It's not anything I could have done, I don't think, on my own in that way. And also they were able to show me what healthy relationships were. There were none really in my life. I had a friend.
So you had no examples, right?
Right. Everybody that we associated with as a family, my sister and brother, their friends, all very dysfunctional. And I had a friend who, her family was very normal. So I did get to see that there. We're still friends today, almost 50 years later. But I did get to see that through their family. Like, this is what a normal family is. I also grew up knowing what we had wasn't normal. But the only reason I think I knew that had to be God, because there was nothing in my life other than my friend that showed that was normal. And so being able to, I just knew that what I had wasn't normal. It wasn't right. And it wasn't what I wanted going forward. And so, but these people in this church were also able to help me understand what that meant. And I think just what I was looking for all of my life, they were able to present to me in Jesus. And so just now, wasn't easy. It was probably the hardest decision that I ever had to make at that point, to break ties.
Sure.
I was also very codependent. I mean, all that. I was a rescuer. I mean, all of that. And so, because of how I grew up, but so they were able to just speak the truth to me, to pray alongside me, to walk with me while I struggled through that. So it was a process. It didn't just happen overnight, but they gave me the strength to, and helped me have the courage to do that. So, yeah.
So awesome. Very cool. So the one other thing I want to ask you, and I just dropped my little thing, so don't talk for a second. The other thing that I want to ask you, we always talk about, how do you stay inspired every day? How do you walk through every single day staying inspired? I mean, just because you met God and He started a relationship with you, it's just like your marriage. If you weren't, seeing your husband every day and, communicating with him every day, when you happen to be long distance from each other or something like that, you can't stay in fellowship. Same thing with God. And so we always talk about the fact that the way people connect with God is just as different as their retinal scan or their fingerprint. And so how you connect is going to be different than everybody else that's watching, but similar to so many. And so because the way you connect might be similar to somebody that's watching, I want to ask how you connect. What do you do? Do you do something every morning or every night, or how do you have fellowship with God? How do you get inspiration every day, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. I definitely spend a lot of time in the Word. I really love to study the Word, and it's God's Word to us. And so I'm pretty passionate about that. So I would love to say every morning faithfully, but that doesn't always happen. But I do try to be diligent in that.
Sure.
We're very committed, in our church. I've been a part of a small group for a long time. spending, you have to spend time with God, right, to have a relationship with him. And so I pray a lot that God would give me a heart for that. That way he would help me to desire, because
Right.
we really can't have a relationship with God without God giving us that desire to have that relationship and the ability to do it.
Right.
And so I do pray a lot that God would give me a heart for him, and, to grow me in him. And so I think, being in the word, spending that time in prayer, having that community of believers that you can be a part of, and then having those people that hold you accountable, that speak truth in your life. I'm a very realistic person, and so very black and white. So a lot of times I need people to make sure that I'm staying in touch with the Holy Spirit and not just doing what I think is best or right. But God's been so gracious to me in, just growing me and giving me a hunger for his word. And keeping me connected to him. And then I just, again, surrounding myself with people that speak the truth in love, and that also remind me who I am, and who I am in him and who he is to me. I just think that's really important.
Sure.
Staying connected to
Right.
people like that, but also to the Holy Spirit. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you. So, you guys, if you would like to ask more questions of Kathy, because a lot of people do have more questions after your story shares, I know you would do coffee or something like that, or maybe a Zoom if, we're still doing distancing or whatever. So, yeah, so can they just message us here and we'll put you in contact? Perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, so if you guys want to have more questions of Kathy, if you want to talk about, maybe working at Chick-fil-A, or if you want to talk about, hey, I came from that kind of background, or I'm in that kind of story right now. I know she would meet with you and talk with you. If you find yourself unexpectedly pregnant, she had to do that. She had to decide to keep Aaron. And how old is Aaron now, may I ask?
He's 32.
Wow.
And
Wow.
he's lovely.
So great. Yep, yep. So it's worth it. It's a hard thing to do that, but it's worth it. So joy of your life, right? So thanks so much for watching. Please share Kathy's story with anybody that you know that needs to hear it, anybody that you know that has a similar story or is going through a similar walk. We'd love for you to share her story with them. And if you have more stories that somebody else needs to share from the red couch, even if it's virtually, please share those with us as well. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great week. Bye-bye.